The Mystery of Jack the Ripper, investigating the most notorious serial killer in history. They say that history is written by the victors, but what about the unsolved mysteries? The case of Jack the Ripper remains one of the most notorious and debated unsolved cases in history. Who was he and what drove him to commit such heinous acts? In this video, we will be exploring the mystery of Jack the Ripper and investigating one of history's most notorious serial killers. We'll take a look at the victims, suspects, and theories surrounding this enigmatic killer. We'll also be considering how the case has been immortalized in popular culture. So fasten your seatbelts, it's time to delve into the murky depths of Jack the Ripper's enduring legacy. Jack the Ripper was a notorious serial killer who terrorized the Whitechapel district of London, England in 1888. The killer's identity remains a mystery to this day, and the case is one of the most infamous unsolved crimes in history. The crimes of Jack the Ripper involved the brutal murders of at least 5 women, all of whom were prostitutes. The victims were Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. The murders were characterized by extreme violence, with the killer often mutilating the victims' bodies and removing organs. The killings occurred over a relatively short period of time, with the first murder taking place on August 31, 1888, and the last on November 9, 1888. The killer's modus operandi varied slightly from victim to victim, but all were targeted because of their occupation as sex workers. The context in which the murders took place was one of poverty, crime, and social unrest in the East End of London. Whitechapel was a densely populated area, with many residents living in extreme poverty and struggling to make ends meet. The area was known for its high crime rate, and prostitution was a common way for women to make money. The killings of Jack the Ripper caused widespread panic and fear in London, with many people believing that the killer could strike at any moment. There are several theories that attempt to explain why Jack the Ripper acted the way he did. 1. Psychological disorders theory. Some experts believe that Jack the Ripper may have suffered from a severe psychological disorder, such as schizophrenia or psychopathy. These disorders may have caused him to experience intense anger, aggression, and violent impulses towards women. 2. Sexual frustration theory. Another theory suggests that Jack the Ripper may have been sexually frustrated, which fueled his aggression towards women. This theory is supported by the fact that all of his victims were female, and he targeted their reproductive organs. What theory comes next is even more interesting. 3. Social conditions theory. Some experts argue that the social conditions of Whitechapel during the late 19th century played a significant role in the rise of Jack the Ripper. Poverty, overcrowding, and the lack of social services created an environment of desperation and lawlessness, which may have contributed to the emergence of a serial killer. 4. Medical professional theory. There are some theories that suggest that Jack the Ripper may have had a medical background, possibly as a doctor or surgeon. This theory is based on the precision and skill with which he mutilated his victims' bodies. 5. Ritualistic killings theory. Finally, some experts believe that Jack the Ripper may have been carrying out ritualistic killings, possibly as part of a cult or secret society. This theory is supported by the fact that some of the victims' bodies were arranged in certain patterns and poses, which some experts believe may have had symbolic significance. Over the years, many suspects have been proposed in the Jack the Ripper case, ranging from famous writers like Lewis Carroll to members of the royal family like Prince Albert Victor. However, most of these theories are based on circumstantial evidence and lack direct proof. Walter Sickert, a famous artist, is one of the most controversial suspects, with some pointing to his artistic obsession with the murders as a possible indication of guilt. The true motives behind Jack the Ripper's crimes remain a subject of debate and speculation, and it is difficult to say for certain what drove him to commit such heinous acts. However, several schools of thought have been proposed over the years. One theory is that Jack the Ripper was a deranged individual with a personal vendetta against prostitutes. This idea is supported by the fact that all of his victims were prostitutes, and the way in which he mutilated their bodies suggests a deep-seated hatred or anger towards them. Some have speculated that the killer may have been rejected by prostitutes in the past or may have had a traumatic experience involving them. Another possibility suggested that Jack the Ripper was a political activist who wanted to draw attention to the dire social and economic conditions in the East End of London. This idea is supported by the fact that the killings took place in one of the poorest areas of the city, and that many of the victims were women who had turned to prostitution as a means of survival. Some have suggested that the killer may have been trying to expose the failure of the government to address these issues. A third possibility is that Jack the Ripper was simply an unscrupulous killer who enjoyed committing heinous crimes. This explanation is supported by the extreme violence of the killings and the fact that the killer seemed to take pleasure in mutilating his victims' bodies. Some have speculated that the killer may have been a sadist or psychopath who derived pleasure from causing pain and suffering. Many have wondered how he managed to evade the law and why he was never caught. One popular theory is that he was a police insider, with some suggesting that he may have been a member of the force himself. This theory is supported by the fact that the killer seemed to have detailed knowledge of police procedures and was able to avoid detection even when the police were actively searching for him. Lastly, the most popular claim that is widely expected is that the killer simply got lucky and was in the right place at the right time. The East End of London at the time was a chaotic and densely populated area, with numerous alleyways and side streets that provided ample opportunities for the killer to disappear into the crowds. Additionally, the police at the time were not as advanced as they are today, and forensic techniques were still in their infancy, making it difficult to gather evidence or identify suspects. The mystery of Jack the Ripper will likely never be solved. Despite the various theories and suspects that have been proposed over the years, no one has ever been positively identified as Jack the Ripper. But even though we may never know who Jack really was, his legacy remains as one of history's most notorious serial killers. Thanks for watching. We hope this video shed light on some of the mysteries surrounding Jack the Ripper and that you gained an appreciation for what makes him so infamous in our collective memory. Until next time, this is History Mystery Stories signing off. Stay curious.